Hello and welcome to a new episode of Talking Snooker with Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf. Once again, talking about the game we all love.
Yeah, hello everyone. It's a Wednesday evening here that we're recording, bang in the middle of the Welsh Open. And what a Welsh Open it's been so far. But plenty more to talk about before that. It's been a busy old time in the snooker world, as ever.
Very busy. I don't borrow jokes or steal jokes. You know that. They're nearly all original. But I'll make a rare exception. I've just seen someone say on Twitter that should be called the Wide Open. I like that. I
I
like
love it.
that.
Yeah,
The Wide
that's
Open
nice.
in Llandudno, yeah. Uh, Lots of big names out. A few lurking, so we don't know if this is going to be one of those where we're talking up an unlikely final and it'll be the same old, same old. But as we know, especially if you read your article, Phil, the Welsh has a habit. Not in the old days, really. The old days was quite, decent winners most of the time. But I know it's like a post-pandemic thing. It's just absolutely mad, the Welsh, and it could be carrying on in that trend again. We'll see. Lots of really interesting action to catch you up on. As you say, we're approaching the halfway stage now of the Welsh Open. And shall we do that in a moment then, Phil, after we talk about the Championship League, which of course was over last week, the invitational version of that event. And Mark Selby claimed the trophy. In fact, for the second year running, he's got his hands on that, Selby. So congratulations to him. Also made a 147 in his match against Xiao Guodong. So very much a fine week for Selby. And lots of big names weren't there in those latter moments of the tournament. In fact, it was Judd Trump, Mark Selby, Hossein Vafai, and Kyron Wilson who finished in the top four positions of the winners' group, with Xiao Guodong, Matthew Selt, and Si He missing out. In the semis, it was Kyron Wilson 3, Judd Trump 0, and Mark Selby 3, Hossein Vafai 1. In the final, it was a no contest, short match, but it was Mark Selby 3, Kyron Wilson 0. Wilson only scored 12 points, Phil, and the Leicester man wrapped up victory with a break of 100. So not the biggest tournament we know, but listen, it's another trophy in an extraordinary trophy cabinet that belongs to Mark Selby.
Yeah, absolutely. To retain it is really impressive, actually. You know, as you say, it's one of the smaller events on the calendar, really, but it's very difficult. Short matches, full of good players, um, and he just went mad. I mean, the end of that um, tournament, the end of the group stage, and then into the semis and the final. He just hit this unbelievable purple patch. I watched the end there, and yeah, he made that 147 against Zhao, and then his win against Hussein, and then Tyron. He was just knocking in breaks for fun, huge breaks. So yeah, it was Selby at his absolute best, and no one could handle it, and it was very, very impressive. So yeah, congratulations to him. Um, he'll file away the Championship League Invitational trophy somewhere, probably near the back of his trophy cabinet, but it's still a very impressive win. Um, and you never know, stuff like that, this going into the business end of the season, it can just be a big perk and put you in the right mind frame and ready to go. You know, he said, especially to beat Kyron, who's been one of the two players of the season, 3-0 in the final. Short race, but it's got to be a boost. And yeah, he was very pleased to win it, as he should be.
He was indeed, and I've got some quotes here from Selby saying just that. He said, "This event is difficult to win. I've been happy to win it once, but twice is even better. I played a lot better in the last day compared to yesterday. I scored well when I got my chances, and it's nice to beat somebody like Kyron. He's a man of the moment, and you get confidence from it." Well, I'm a bit wary to sort of say it's factually correct to say that Selby's still in the Welsh. He is. He might not be when you listen to this. Bit of video printer action, and of course he's in action, isn't he, on this Wednesday night? But he did mention about taking confidence, and you do that. That's what the Championship League can do. We see it time and time again, actually, with the guys that have just played in the week of action before the Masters. So often they
Mm.
take it into that, and we see it in other things as well. So, in and of itself, it's not necessarily huge. As you say, it'll put him at the back of his cabinet. But in terms of taking confidence forward, a trophy is a trophy ultimately for these guys, and they'll sort of really appreciate doing it. And Mark's on a high at the moment. And we moved on, didn't we, Phil? Straight to the Welsh Open, and we had a bit of qualifying action to wrap up. Uh, what since we were last on air, and another 147. I think they're really easy 147s. They are quite easy. I was saying, wasn't I, on social media? I could probably do it myself, but we've got a podcast to do. That's the point you're saying. That's the priority, isn't it? Who wants to see yet another maximum? In place of a popular podcast? I don't think so.
Well, it's like Ronnie said, isn't it? Well, there's no prize on the line, so what's the point?
Exactly. I could do it just like I could make 21 and text you, like I just made a maximum. I could do either of those things if I want to. Let's move on and be sensible and say that Zeus did get that maximum. Brilliant effort from him. Against Bulsu Revez, actually, a match he won 4-2. Well, Jimmy Robertson had a narrow win 4-3 over Alan Taylor. Notable because Robertson was 3-0 down. Really good effort. Michael Holt giving away 50 points in fouls on the green was quite a moment. You don't see those too often. He did win, though, 4-1 against Daniel Wells. Good win for Liam Davis against Anthony McGill. 3-1 down there. And McGill, of course, had a good run in Germany, so he's in a bit of form himself. Davis winning it with breaks of 114, 72, and 109. Jimmy White pretty close to making it. Scott Donaldson beating Jimmy, though, 4-3. Ben Mertens had a good win over Tetraya Anu, 4-2. Marco Fusor, David Grace, 4-0. So lots of interesting results. And then we got to Llandudno for day one on Monday. And the really big early story, Phil, was Gary Wilson. We must talk more about Gary later. He was a brilliant guest on us, or with us last week. We used to say that we gave players luck, but that's changed. I mean, the podcast has been going on so long now that it's all right for narratives to change. We're now a bad luck charm. He lost 4-3 to Ishpreet Singh Chatter. Great win, though, for Ishpreet. Got to say that. Terrific win. Mark Williams beat Florian Nusler 4-1. And then was delighted to see Darren Morgan in the BBC studio. I mean, I shouldn't be flippant. It's not a very nice situation, actually. I mean, Williams making it clear he didn't really want to speak to Darren Morgan at all, and then telling you in an interview, Phil, that he didn't think he'd ever speak to Darren Morgan again, and that's pretty much a former friendship now. Stephen Maguire beat Zeus. Can win for Maguire that because Zeus is a dangerous customer, as we know now. Breaks of 62, 93, and 74 from Maguire. And Mark Allen beat Sam Moody 4-3 with a 1-3-8 in that match from Allen and a 67 in the decider. So a lot of talking for me there. Loads for you to reflect on. And Gary Wilson would have liked to make a longer defence than that. But sadly, it's in keeping with this season. He just can't get going.
Yeah, it's fits and starts, to put it mildly, really. I mean, he had a couple of breaks in there, so he wasn't completely gone, but he was very downbeat on his performance again. I think he said it was heinous afterwards. Um, um, but I mean, Ishpreet, obviously a good player. We've seen some good stuff from him, so no disgrace to lose closely to him. But yeah, disappointing. It's Scottish and the Welsh, the two tournaments he's been the defending champion for this season. He's gone out in the first round, so yeah, it's not been a complete write-off this season. I think if results go his way, he'll still be in the Grand Prix. Just um, but we'll see. Yeah, I mean, obviously, he told us that he's been working hard trying to find form, but it's not happened quite yet. So he'll keep plugging away. Yeah, a couple of other things for the qualifiers I wanted to mention that we've on the wrong end of results there were Anthony Hamilton and Joe Perry, who are now looking very perilous indeed in terms of keeping their tour cards. That's going to come down to the World Championship qualifying for those two, and it could be the first time they're off tour since 91 and 92, respectively, for
Oh,
Hamilton and Perry. So, it's big stuff, really. It's seismic changes. And we'll see. They've obviously still got the quality in there to pull off some results in Sheffield when they need to, but it'll take some doing because they've not had good seasons at all. Um, but yeah, I watched Anthony's last qualifier with Stan Moody, and that was a bit of a real scrappy. And I like having Hamilton on tour, not just because I like him, but
mm.
I like him as this sort of, and this isn't disrespectful, but almost like a gatekeeper for young players to come through and be tested against this sort of wise old sage of the game who plays in quite an old-fashioned way. And it's just like, okay, you're not gonna. He just provides a test that other players don't provide in terms of just grinding it out, and he knows everything, and it's going to be slow, and it's going to be hard. And if young players can come through it, then fair play to them, and Stan did that. So well played to Stan. But yeah, it would be a great shame if Anthony and Joe fall off the tour, but we shall see. Um, and then yes, we'll move on to the second day at the Well. Where have I gone to here? Um, Kyron Wilson, yes. Oh no, yeah, Zhang and Rushmore. That's the first one there that day, isn't it? Um, Am I looking in the wrong place? I'm having a nightmare
Well,
here.
Phil, let me tell you. No, let me just help you out a bit by saying that, of course, the news that I think you may have broken it. It may not have been you, but you're the one that I saw it say it first. The Ronnie O'Sullivan, of course, pulled out. But I mean,
Unfortunately.
that's not in itself a great, an incredible news line. Apart from there was a bit of news around, wasn't there, that he might play in it. I mean, no more than a few whispers. I'm sure I saw in a few places. Oh, he's on the train. He's on, because
Mm.
I said to you, I've taken one of my social media breaks, but I was going to do one of the most half-baked gags possible. He's on the train, so he should be there by April type thing. A few people said to me, "Oh, he's on the train." Next thing, oh, he has pulled out, so that wasn't quite correct. But I'm sure we'll see him soon. But obviously, listen, I mean, the outburst is always quite dramatic. I mean, it's very dramatic again, which is kind of a bit strange on some levels in the sense that it's the ultimate deja vu, isn't it? Um, I won't go far saying it's been a rage. That would be a bit rude, but people have got very het up about it, and I suppose it's funny to keep getting het up, unless they're different people getting het up every time type thing. But generally, it is happening a lot. I do get people's disappointment, especially if they plan to see Ronnie play. But there will be other chances, I'm sure. Some of the noises I'm hearing about Ronnie are pretty good, saying he won't, he might come back. So I noticed John Higgins did an interview, didn't he? I think you might have written it
Mm.
up saying that he thinks Ronnie's getting ready for the business end. And, who's to say that's not right? And who's to say that he won't come back strong? But that was the news we heard that day. And then another one to maybe have a word with you about that. I couldn't get my head round. I didn't see it actually, but I could. I saw bits or highlights. I couldn't get my head around Mahe Long, Sean Murphy in a way because Murphy's scoring was ludicrous in a losing cause.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I was looking at the right page there, but I don't know what happened to me. Yeah, no, Murphy played really well, as did Mar. That was a great game. And then it was a typical crazy decider. And Mar fluked match ball, which Sean was openly absolutely sick, I think were his words about how
Mm.
that match ended. But no, Mar played really well there, and that was a great result for him. Sean can count himself unlucky, for sure, but great game. And yeah, Ronnie, I mean, it's the story we've covered a number of times, isn't it? I don't think anyone has a problem with him not playing every event. If they do, then that's quite unreasonable. But it's the time of the withdrawals that bothers people, and it seems to be getting later and later. I mean, that had got to the point where we were all quite sure he was going to play, which that wasn't being naive. I think we're all aware that he pulls out of a lot of events, but it got to the point where it's like, oh, it's too close now. He is going to do it. And then on the morning, it was confirmed that he wasn't. And yeah, World Snooker told me that he only confirmed to them that he was pulled out on the morning of the match, and he was playing in the afternoon session. So it is very late in the day. Um, it's far from ideal. He can do it if he wants, obviously, because he does it all the time. But it's not good for fans. Someone had, I think, in the Express had dug out a fan that had travelled there specifically. I think he travelled 6 hours to go and see Ronnie
Yeah,
O'Sullivan
I
play.
saw
So
that. Yeah.
yeah, understandably, you'd be fuming about that. It was a Tuesday afternoon. You've got the day off work. Um, so yeah, it's not good. It's not a good situation for anyone other than Ronnie doesn't want to play, so he doesn't play. So yeah, I mean, as I say, we've been over it a million times, so we don't need to keep doing it. But it would be helpful for everyone if you could give people a bit more notice. But at the same time, we wish him well. We don't know what he's going through. You hear all, as you say, you hear all different things. Um, yeah, I asked John about it after his match today, and he seemed to think it was more just probably getting used to a new cue. But I don't know. That was a one take on it. Um, so we'll see. Yeah, I mean, I would
Oh, of
be
course.
surprised if
I
he.
forgot the new cue. Sorry, and he has a
Yeah,
new.
it was interesting
He's
that John
put one
said
in the
that.
bin, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, because we hadn't really heard. I mean, we had heard about that, but I hadn't heard someone say that's why he hadn't been playing. So maybe it is that. Um, but yeah, we'll see. I mean, I would be surprised if we don't see him in Hong Kong. He's a resident there now, and I would assume he would play in that. But we'll see. You never know. But yeah, it's certainly not good for, especially for people who have travelled to London now. And it's not that close to a lot of things. People will have travelled from far to do that. So yeah, it's disappointing for them, of course. Um, but yeah, the day rolled on. Ricky Walden was there. I mean, he had that operate when he's got to have an operation. He pulled out of Germany through illness, and he's sort of soldiering on. So well done for turning up and playing, but he lost 4-0 to Matt Sell. I watched a bit of Ryan Day against Ben Mertens that day. Good win for Ryan. Um, Dave Gilbert came back from behind and won an edgy one against Jordan Brown in the decider. Baron Wilson beat Marco Funa in a good 4-3er, and he reached 500 career centuries with that one. So big landmark for Kyron. He's really sort of building an incredible CV this season in numerous ways, and that was another impressive um, thing to add to his resume. I noticed Luca Brissell. I watched a bit of him against Stuart Carrington. He looked good. He's looking increasingly solid, um, playing. He's always going to play expansively, but he's knuckling down, looking like he's playing correctly as much as he ever will. And he looked very good in that win. So encouraging signs for Luca and yeah, Lasowski we'll get on to a bit further, I guess. And I mean, he had a match you'd expected to win against the amateur Josh Cooper, but he did it very, very impressively. Won 4-0 with 3 tons. So you can't ask for more than that, really, can you?
No, and I know a couple of friends of mine actually that good fans, good snooker people, and also love their football as well. Like a lot of us do, and they were sort of a couple of them were saying, well, they tuned over to watch that Exeter and Forest, which to be fair did go on very late in the night, went to penalty kicks.
Yeah.
Watch a bit of Lazowski on, but Lazowski was over in was it even an hour? I think he came on. He came on about 10, I think, UK time. And by 11:15, oh, it's done. 4-0. I mean, yeah, he's a red hot form in that sense. I genuinely can't remember if you did mention Matthew Stevens, Jack Jones now. That's one
I didn't.
That's Stephen. It was. And Stevens won that 4-2. But it's a bit of a curious affair looking at the scoring because Jones made 137 and 123, two big hundreds in the frames he won. But Stevens got the job done there. And yeah, all the other stories were smashing, which you cleared up there. And Barry Hawkins beaten by Sanderson Lambs, another line there. 4-1 for Sanderson. Yeah, cracking result for him. And then we had some really interesting scorelines today. I watched some of the Ford and Robertson, Tom Ford, especially towards the end. Robertson came from 3-0 down there, really impressively to force a decider. But then Ford made a hell of a 1-3-1 clearance in the last frame. And what I really liked about it was, and Joe Perry made this point, the aforementioned Joe Perry's on as part of the BBC commentary team. It's great to have him on there actually this week. And he made a really good point that Tom Ford had two really quite tough blacks. One of them was on the cushion. And he really got down and played it as if it was a normal shot type thing. There was no great sort of dramas about it. And listen, I was thinking in my own head during that, well, why don't more players do that? But it's very easy to sort of say from the armchair. But I like that, and I particularly liked it because it was Ford who would be the other way sometimes. You get things get in his head. That was a top break. So when a guy comes back from 3-0, that sets all sorts of alarm bells in your head. So he did really well to get that job done. Well, it was a no contest, John Higgins and Robert Milkins. Milkins having a pretty wretched season, actually. 4 half centuries from Higgins in a 4-0 win there. Sanderson Lamb carrying on, beat Wu Years of 4-2. Mark Williams, of course, loads of people would have loved to have seen go all the way. He's out, beaten 4-2 by Stephen Maguire. I'm not quite sure what was happening in that, but while watching the Ford and Robertson, it was like something like the London Palladium. There was laughter galore. That's one for the teenagers. Something like the London Palladium, Phil. Yeah, it was just laughter galore in that match. I mean, I think they were calling it banter in commentary, but I half meant to go over and watch it, but then it went on a bit longer forward, so I thought, I can't keep rewinding on the iPlayer and find it. But did you any of you saw that? Or just
no, well, I was watching because it was in that decider between Ford and Robertson, wasn't it? Because Ford was really sort of in the meat of that crucial break to win the match, and there was just all sorts of lolling from the other table.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what it was, but Ford did well to hold himself together in that there.
He did. It was classic. Two big characters, obviously, Maguire and Williams. Well, hell of a result, which I noticed you flagged up and quite rightly. I didn't see the end of that one during Mark Allen. One winning it 4-3. I mean, just look at the score. Immense score in the last frame. And you can see that, no quarter given. Very long, very tense, and a real effort from one to get the better of Allen in a frame like that. That was a good win. Jack Lasowski, you sounded the bell, Phil. You sounded the bell just after I was sounding it in my own head. Could this be? Unfortunately, I have to say before we came on air that one of the Lasowski tropes is he plays really well in one, often two matches in a row, but then completely won't turn up. Won't just get beaten, he won't turn up. So that might happen in the next match or two. I hope not, because I'd love nothing more than Lisowski to go all the way. Well, he's made breaks of 1-1-2, 77, and 105 to beat Chris Wakelin 4-1. Wakelin took the opener with an 84, so good scoring in that match. And the results have just happened in the last sort of half hour or so. Ali Carter beating Hossein for 5-4-2, three half centuries from Carter. Ryan Day beating Mahe Long 4-2. Day was 2-0 down in that one and won 4 frames in a row. And the one that's literally just happened, which is that Kyron Wilson is out. And that's a line now. That's a big line in any tournament. Joe O'Connor's beating him 4-3. I had a little look, and I was telling you about it. I think you may have seen a bit more. Kyron seemed to be in absolutely hellish snooker in the last frame. The commentary team, I think Virgo is one of them on the BBC, were talking about should it be a hit and hope at one stage. It was that much of a stinker for him. But he did try and get out of it with a kind of slow shot. Didn't really work, and O'Connor got over the line. So yeah, listen, Kyron going out is a story, Phil. In any tournament, he looked very downbeat because he wants to win everything. That's what the top players do. But unlike recently in Germany, it won't be this week.
No, yeah, no, Connor played really, really well. It's very impressive. But yeah, of course, and it felt these big names were falling, and Kyram's name was still in the draw. It felt like it was shaping up to be another great week for the world champion, but he's gone early, and the Welsh is proving to be as unpredictable as ever. And yeah, the bottom half of the draw now. I mean, this will be sort of out of date very quickly, but as we talk ahead of the last 16, so the bottom half just has Selt, Lasowski, Lamb, Maguire, Day, Carter, Stevens, and O'Connor. So one of them's in the final. Um, some of them would be more surprising than others. You wouldn't have been stunned by Ali Carter being in a ranking final, but all the rest probably, would be a turn up for the books these days. And I mean, Carter's not had a good season at all since that first Championship League, so he'd be a bit of a surprise. Some bigger names in the top half, Selby and Higgins and Brissell still going while we speak. But yeah, I mean, it looks like a great chance for people this week. And the Welsh, yeah, I mean, like you said earlier, it used to be well, it was very different when in a time of snooker's history when there were a few ranking events and maybe it was a bit more prominent. These last few years, I don't know, maybe it's its place on the calendar in between some bigger events. Not sure why, but it's become absolute chaos really in terms of picking winners. And this year looks no different as far as it's shaping up so far.
Absolutely right. And let's go to the Vidi Printer then and see the latest news from a couple of matches out there. Well, it's quite early actually. It's Luca Bassel, world champion, of course, of last season. Well, he's in action against Noppon Sankam. It's 1 frame all in that one. And Mark Selby, the aforementioned a few times now, is just kicking off in his match against Elliot Slesser. So let's have a look at some of the last 16 matches we do know about them. Well, it's Jack Lazowski, Matthew Selt. Tom Ford has got Jackson Page. It's John Higgins, Juan Sidran. Stephen Maguire's playing Sanderson Lamb. Ali Carter, Ryan Day, and Matthew Stevens, Joe O'Connor. So really fascinating mix. I mean, most tournaments are, but, some surprising names there. Some names that guys that haven't really played well this season. Some of the more big ones as well. So, yeah, we'll really enjoy the last 4 days for sure. And we'll take you through to the last 16 stage when we're next on the air. And we'll have maybe a look at the video printer again before we go off this time. But that's the Welsh Open for now. It seems to be going down well. Every time I tune in, Phil, the crowds seem very good. I mean, that's the thing about Llandudno. It has served snooker well. I know I said before about, funny about the Welsh not being in South Wales, but I don't lose sleep over it. And as long as the crowds in Llandudno are great, I mean, you say it's a hard place to get to. It's not, in some ways it's not a bad catchment area. I mean, Manchester and Liverpool aren't a million miles away and what have you, but in some ways it's relatively remote-ish on other levels. But yeah, good crowds. They just, it's maybe not the most appealing time of year weather-wise, but they turn up to that event, don't they, the punters?
Yeah, definitely looked from day one, morning one, that it was well attended in there. And yeah, I mean, it's a very unique place, isn't it? But it looks lovely. You only ever hear how beautiful it is there, so probably is worth the trip. And yeah, the snooker's great, and the Welsh Open is unique on the calendar, really, with the BBC Wales coverage, which you get different voices, different faces, different pundits in there. We get, you get the treat of the awkward Morgan Williams moment.
Oh,
But having it's like having a triple crown, isn't it, with the BBC and the Eurosport option? But the BBC option feels different from normal. So yeah, it's cool. It's cool. I really like that sort of side of it. Um, a nice treat, and the hosts are really good. And one more player I wanted to mention, Jamie Jones, still going strong in the last 16. He's going to play Selby or Slessor, but I had a great chat with him after his first round win over Seizure Wee, which is a great result. Um, and I'd been meaning to speak to him for a while because I knew he'd pulled out of the international championship qualifiers earlier in the season, October time. And he put on Instagram it was because he wanted to look after his mental health. So I was looking forward to talking to him, just how he was. And he said he's been really struggling, as many players are. He's had a really tough time, but is improving. Um, and the results are starting to show. He's into the last 16. Let's run for a little while. So yeah, it's nice when you speak to players about them coming through difficult times and they start to enjoy the game more. And the results show. His last win against Robbie Williams, he played really, really well. I'll just get his breaks up here. It was very impressive. He won 4-2 with breaks of 87, 79, 108, and 110. So yeah, that's a guy who's doing out the better side of a difficult patch. So yeah, well done to Jamie, and wish him well for the rest of the tournament.
and you've been doing great work for us. I'm glad you brought that up. Breaking the Ronnie story. You got some great quotes from Mark Williams, I have to say. I mean, I do them dallied about whether to talk about that much, and personally decided against really it because I think it's sort of personal. But one thing, one person did say to me that sort of knows his snooker pretty well, that he was surprised that the BBC did that, and I couldn't. I thought this is quite a few years old now, and I don't think they've done it before. So I can't work out whether it's just lucky that it hasn't happened before and unlucky now, or whether it's deliberate. Because there is part of me that sort of thinks they may have tried to organise it so they didn't. Then I suppose I'm also a bit on the fence of thinking, well, they are grown adults, and should a TV company really be sort of sorting out their studio depending on who gets on with who? But it was unseemly sort of stuff. And I suppose, yeah, maybe a word if you want on that. And also, it makes me a bit worried about Anthony Hamilton. Maybe less so with Joe, I'm not sure. But I feel if he fell off tour, might he stop with his health issues? I think he mightn't he?
Yeah, last time I spoke to him for a phone interview, I did ask him because it has been a possibility for a bit, and he said he'd go to Q school
Oh, he would, right.
because I think most pros think like that because they've obviously practiced all season, so they feel like they're even if they're not got good results, they're still sort of sharpish and ready to play. But I think he said if he didn't get through Q school, then that would be it. Yeah, and he'd go into coaching and any media work and stuff that he could get. So yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a strong potential that it would be the end of his playing career. I mean, he's the kind of guy that could easily get through Q school. That is really about sort of getting in the weeds of things. It's not all about big breaks. It's about the knowledge and getting stuck in. So he would be a nightmare for anyone to play in Q school. So he could easily come back through if it was to come to that. But yeah, no, I think that's his plan. That's what he last said to me anyway. So I'm not sure, but yeah, and then yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they had been on in the studio since they sort of fell out a few years ago. Um, yeah, I mean the question that Darren asked Mark was very sort of softball. It wasn't pressing or anything, was it? I think he was quite surprised. It was the no comment, and there was a very funny. I mean, I found the whole thing. I mean, it's sad, but that scene was quite funny because there was a very awkward silence, and then Ken Doherty was filled it with just a very forced like, as if it was funny. Um, so yeah, no, it was beautifully awkward. But yeah, no, Mark was pretty insistent afterwards that their relationship is at an end. So I don't know if they'll be put together in that room again. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, Ken did well there. He sort of garbled that question a bit, didn't he? Because he sort of, he had to sort of, it was very awkward. I mean, it might have been the most anxious job, really. But anyway, yeah, Ken stepped in with the question, and then he sort of Mark made it sort of worse or obvious by then being really sort of polite to Ken. Well,
Yeah, like almost over the top. Yeah.
yeah, you was. It's funny, Ken. Oh, exactly. Oh dear. Anyway, listen. We said we definitely do inside an hour, and hopefully about 50 minutes It's not. We're doing okay. It's half an hour gone. We had an absolute marathon with Gary Wilson. We don't want to do that. We'll return to the rest of the Welsh Open next time. But that's all from Llandudno for now. I will say you are listening here to Talking Snooker with Phil Haigh and Nick Metcalf. Phil, one of snooker's most familiar names, Reanne Evans, is celebrating again. She's won the Belgian Women's Open in Bruges. Great effort from Reanne. She beat Mink Nutcherat 4-3 in the final. She was 2-0 and 3-2 down in that. And I do say quite a lot that those finals always seem to be deciders, or often do. I know they're short, but they really are often, very, very tense. And I also want to make a mention of On Yi, who made a total clearance of 138 during her meeting with So Man Yan in the last 16. And we run through some more results in a moment. But yeah, Rihanna, I think I saw it was her 60th ranking event. So she's done all right in her career. Not too bad.
It's very, very impressive. Yeah. Yeah, still going strong. And she's had sort of injuries, and so she had a bit of a down spell a few years ago, which coincided with the, sort of coming onto the main tour, which was a bit of a shame. But it just seemed to be getting back in the swing of things and picking up tournaments regularly again against the best players on the women's side as well. Yeah. I mean, beating even Wendy Young's in the quarters, and then on Ian Mink. That's a great run. So yeah, congratulations to Rianne. It's a great effort.
It really is. The quarterfinals then Nutcherat 3, Kamila Kajeva 0. Reanne Evans, as you say, beating Wendy Yans 3-1. It was Anupana Ramachandran 3, Rebecca Kenner 2. Respotted black in the decider there. And Onyi 3, Tessa Davidson 2. In the semi-finals, Mink Nutcherat 4, Anupana Ramachandran 0. Breaks of 115 and 107 in that one from Mink. And then Reanne Evans 4, Onyi 3, and loads of good scoring throughout that. Evans top scoring with 80. And then, as I say, Reanne Evans beating Mink Nutcherat 4-3 in the final. Should say also Narucha Forenful won the under-21 title, beating China's Chan Wei Lam in the final. And Tessa Davidson won the seniors title, beating Anya van der Boos in the final to make it 3 titles in a row for her in Belgium. Well, I've been saying for some time that I think she must have the most impressive trophy cabinet in sport, Phil. And we can ask her about it, can't we? Because we're delighted to say that Tessa Davidson will join us on this podcast in 2 weeks' time, all being well, on February the 25th. So if you have a question for that prolific winner of seniors events in the women's game, Tessa Davidson, tweet us please, at Talking Snooker, or email talkingsnooker @yahoo.com. I've had a couple of people already say to me they don't know too much about her, and nor do I really in the great scheme of things. So one of those nice episodes we'll be learning a lot more together, Phil.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, we just see a name all the time winning winning tournaments. So yeah, we'll ask her all sorts about her. I know she took a fairly long break from snooker, as far as I'm aware, and came back and has been winning ever since. So yeah, no, looking forward to that one.
Definitely, yeah. Took a long break and just come back and just taken the game by storm and doing very well in the regular events as well, getting higher and higher in the rankings actually. And I think very impressive effort, and say cleans up with the seniors. So that'll be a great guest for us in a couple of weeks' time on here. And let's have now some Q Tour news. Liam Highfield beat Dylan Emery 4-3 to win the 7th and final WPBSA Q Tour Europe event of the season at that fine club, the Landywood in Walsall. Friend of the podcast, Highfield. That's a really good win. Looking through, Phil, I know you're often saying this, but you're quite right. Among the players he beat, Craig Steadman, Ryan Davis, Josh Tomond, Kuldesh Johal. These are familiar names in the game. And then they'd got the job done against Emery, obviously in a tight final. That guarantees Highfield's place at the Q Tour Global Playoffs in Turkey next month. And yeah, but good players throughout the field there, Phil. Those events, as we say time and time again, really take some winning.
Yeah, yeah, it's a minefield. Those short games. Um, yeah, loads of you scroll down to sort of who was going out in round one, and there are people who you wouldn't be surprised to go really deep. People like Peter Lyne, Rory McLeod. These guys take some beating. Paul Deville went out in round one there. And yeah, there's lots of very experienced former pros, people who, even if they've not been on the pro circuit, they've won a lot of games. And then you've got people like Sean Liu, 14 years old in the quarterfinals. Very, very impressive. He knocked out Stephen Hallworth in the second round, knocked out Harvey Chandler, he's another former pro, in the third round, and then narrowly lost to Emery in the quarterfinals. So he's someone we've heard of his name for a little while, actually, Sean, despite being so young. But yeah, he's what a talent. So to be competing in that company at that age. Unbelievable. But yeah, congratulations to Liam though. He was a great guest on here, really enjoyed it. So glad to see him doing well. And yeah, he'll be having a crack at that in Turkey. And I mean that's going to be a real scrap there with players from um, this Q Tour ranking list, but also from around the globe, swapping out for playoffs for tour cards in Antalya. So let's look, we'll cover that when it comes around, but that's in about a month's time.
Yeah, we definitely will be covering that here on Talking Snooker. And I was thinking about when Highfield was on. I thought it was longer ago than October, but then someone, it was that joke, wasn't it? Someone said CCTV, which was kind of made us laugh. Well worth listening. He was good value on here. That's available to listen to now alongside all our back catalogue of episodes. Still not bad, about 40 minutes, I reckon. Let's move on to correspondence, Phil. And Elaine first up, who says, hello. Nice touch. Hello, Nick and Phil. First time emailing the podcast. I'd just like to say I really enjoy listening to both of you bouncing off each other with the latest tournaments and snooker news from the game we all love. I've been lucky to attend a few events this year, and I've just returned from this year and last, and I've just returned from Berlin, which was a bucket list tick box for myself and my granddad. What a venue, what a superb event. The reason I felt compelled to get in touch was to gain some info on the snooker mascot, Johnny Potalot, whom I met at the Temperdrome. Having a brief conversation with this fantastic crowd-pleasing creation, I was amazed to learn the guy behind it. And inside it, he is Scottish, but I did not get his name. He does this independently and indeed was invited over by the promoters of the German Masters. I've seen him at a few events over the last couple of years, not so much last year. But this is a brilliant idea to connect to fans, mums, dads, and kids. I initially thought it belonged to WST, WPBSA Matchroom, but this is not the case. Surely this is a must at every event. I stood back and watched as Johnny Potalot took photos with the snooker fans, signed autographs, interacted with the passing public, and even kids passing by, who I assume did not know anything about our sport. What a fantastic promotional tool for snooker. My question is, why is this not the official mascot at every tournament? It sends out such a positive vibe for this amazing sport. Someone from marketing should really take a closer look at this. Keep up the amazing work you both do. It brightens my day. Elaine, it was a massive week for Johnny Potter. Like, he met Nick Metcalf. I mean, that's not something that happens every day, is it, Phil? I was really impressed by Johnny, actually. I told him about that serious conversation I couldn't have for much longer. Not that it wasn't a good conversation, it was just ludicrous. But he got loads of attention. He did, and I was chatting with a few people I know and others just around that sort of, front of the arena area. And he got more attention than I've seen at any UK event, I have to say. May just be the parts that I saw, but he was getting loads, and it was really good, actually. It was nice. And talk about sort of children there that go. I mean, that's obviously always important, Phil. Always going to be looking at the future and anything that, because children do love seeing mascots. They do. They love that. So, it makes them feel more connected to their kind of age level, doesn't it? And the things they enjoy. So, yeah, I fully endorse all that. Interesting that he's invited by the promoters. I didn't know that. I mean, I know, I think Johnny and I follow each other on Twitter. So, if he wants to give us a bit more information about what he does, he's always most welcome, Johnny, if you listen. But yeah, nice email. Elaine had a good time there. And I was really impressed by Johnny. And I'm not always a massive mascot person, but this one I think works quite well.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, like you say, if it gets kids involved, that's great. And it seemed like the kind of thing that could be used in sort of, I don't know, sort of marketing, cartoon Johnny doing stuff, little cartoons, getting kids involved in snooker. But I don't know. I said to you actually when we got this email that weirdly I'd been thinking about who funds Johnny Potter lots. I don't know why. I must have had a very quiet few moments where I was thinking about that. But because I didn't think it was WST or WPBSE. because I'd just never seen it and connected with that. But I hadn't really thought that it was just someone who was turning up off their own bat. So I mean, fair play, Johnny. I like the initiative, and yeah, seems like a very popular addition to the tournament. So more of it, the better. And well done to the German promoters for flying him in. It's good stuff. I'm glad it went down well. So move on to Ross Harmer. Hey, Nick and Phil. Hope all is well with you both. The question I would like to ask is I'm actually going to subscribe to TNT for the snooker with cancelling my current Sky Sports package and also Discovery Plus. What are you two going to do? I think the amount of snooker that will be on TNT warrants the price, if I'm honest. Also, one last thing. I'm currently listening to a few snooker podcasts, but yours is still the most informative and interesting podcast I've heard. Keep up the good work, Ross. Oh, well, that's very kind of you, Ross. Yeah, it's a tricky one for everyone, isn't it? The old price increase. I think I've already got TNT through sort of an arrangement with a load of people I work with where we share passwords and it all works out just about all right. So that's how I'm getting around it. But yeah, no, it's going to be tough to call. And yeah, I'm sure some people will bite the bullet because you do get an awful lot of snooker on there, of course. But the price increase is substantial.
Yes, I think that a work scenario might be the answer for me too. I quite like the way he straight out what are you two going to do. I like that sort of the old. We should do that a lot more back to those domestic arrangements, shouldn't we? About what are you going to do about your heating bill? Well, I don't know. I thought about it, but I mean, the way I think about it really is that I've been watching Eurosport and Discovery via Amazon Prime in recent times. That's how I generally watch the snooker. Apart from the odd thing that happens when they go off sometimes on when nights overrun, it generally, I think it's been very good, being able to scroll across. I've found it very good indeed. I mean, both the main sports packages, I'm talking about the Sky and TNT, you pay your money, you take your choice. I mean, they both have impressive packages, don't they? I mean, I've tended to watch Sky through Now TV in recent years. That's mainly through Premier League football and the NFL, which is a huge love of mine. So that's been great for that. But TNT has obviously a great lineup. All the snooker now. It's got Premier League. It's got the European Cup football, FA Cup for next season. Loads of big rugby. We think the next Ashes series down under. So there obviously are choices to be made, and it's one of those. I said it before. I'm so confident at this point. I'm saying it again, Phil. I think it's a bit like tickets. I think that for a long, long time in snooker, and Chris Downer made this point to me at the Masters. He was telling me about going to the UK final like 20 years ago. It was like twopence halfpenny, a few shillings in old money. It was nothing, even 20 years ago. And that's kind of what snooker was like. I remember going back as a fan then as well, even to the Crucible. It's like it wasn't very much at all. Now that was great. We all loved it. But there's a strong case for snooker being quite undersold in those years. And I think that the rise has been dramatic. And I'm not going to say that Eurosport and Discovery was undersold. That's not really my place to say that. But I think it was a very good deal, wasn't it? And now it's gone to being a lot more. There's been nothing gradual. That's the problem with a lot of life now and finances, isn't it? But important to say, of course, Phil, there are ways you can get yourself deals. I know you put it out there. I know various fans have as well. Discovery are offering different, prices, particularly those that are cancelling, I think, and to entice them back. So there's that as well. But listen, it's definitely going to be a choice that people have to make. Obviously, it's that Eurosport and TNT switch is happening very soon. I mean, the thing about TNT is there will be a lot of channels there, so we're going to get the coverage all the time. I see no reason to think there'll be any difference in there. But yeah, obviously people are going to have to make their choices. I mean, the whole viewing world now is mad, isn't it? And I mean, even beyond this, like I was just thinking the other day, a show I absolutely love is Dexter, and at the moment they've got. I've talked about it on here before. They've got a prequel show of that. So for my sins, I signed up to Paramount Plus, and that's sort of half mad, really. That's £5 a month. I mean, okay, I'm lucky to be able to do that. Don't get me wrong, a bit of first world problem here, but I'll probably end that when it goes. But I'm thinking, why have I now got Paramount Plus in my life? Really, I've already got sort of Amazon. I've got Netflix. I'm pretty sure. I'm like, sometimes it's a bit of a Martin Lewis, whatever that thing he does is called, save money, whatever. It's a bit like we need him in our lives a bit for all these sort of things. Like, why are you paying for 9 different services?
Yeah.
It's out of control, isn't it? A bit.
It is, it's crazy. And there always seems to be one thing you want to watch on all of them, and
Yeah.
nothing else really. Yeah, we've got quite a few. But again, I think it's arrangements. We really aren't signed up to all these things. But like s- my partner's sister will be, and we'll have her log into one of them, and then we'll sign up for one and share that. So yeah, we definitely don't pay for all the ones that we sort of log into, and I'm sure a lot of people are in the same boat there. But yeah, it is more and more, and it doesn't seem like slowing down. And I think the frustrating thing for fans is, I know this has been the case in sport, Sky Sports seems to go up all the time, even though there's all these other stuff with all these other sports you have to get as well. Sky Sports things that they offer isn't really getting any better, and it might even be getting worse, or it's certainly more diffused across other things, but the price isn't going down. And TNT is almost as much as a Sky Sports package on top of Sky Sports if you want that as well. So yeah, it's but as you say, it's life in general, isn't it? There's so many things. I mean, I think it might be a bit better last year, but I remember going to you talk about enormous increases, nothing gradual. I went to get and renew my car insurance last year. It doubled. I can believe it. There was no sort of you expect a little bit of increase, but yeah, it's mad. So that's the problem with these things. Like, ultimately, you are getting a lot for 30 quid a month, even if it is 30 quid a month. But it's just the whole of life is pressing the old wallet a bit. So they all sting a bit, don't they?
They do. I'll tell you another thing. You know, I had a big landmark birthday just gone in the autumn. My sister and brother were asking what I wanted and kindly got me concert vouchers because I'm an events person ultimately. That's what I live for. Um, but the cost of music costs, I sound like a granddad here, but the cost of music
True.
concerts now, and it's happened quickly, isn't it? Relatively. I mean, I'm not saying it was ever cheap to go to these big gigs at Wembley or the big stadium one. I was thinking of, I think I might be trying to go see ELO this year, this summer at Hyde Park. That's one thing I just want to try and see. But listen, I know enough about prices over the years. It's always been quite expensive, but the last 2, 3, 4 years, it's gone absolutely mad. Music concerts, has it not?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's like 100 quid used to be that used to be just sort of the Rolling Stones doing a final tour. Now it's sort of any sort of big band is the best part
Yeah,
of
I
100 quid.
agree.
That gig that I'm still tempted to try and get a ticket because it's Black Sabbath's farewell gig and it's got the best heavy metal lineup you could ever imagine at Villa Park in the summer. And it is for charity, which is sort of encouraging me a bit. But a standing ticket for that is £260.
Is it? Wow.
And that's not, and then it goes more. Seated tickets more expensive. So, and it is sort of an all day sort of festival vibe, but still, bloody hell. I mean, I wasn't expecting that. Yeah, and just a normal gig that used to sort of. I mean, I see a lot of small bands, but they're not cheap. They're really sort of you can relatively small bands still 30, 40 quid these days. So yeah, it's everything. We don't want to drone about the price of
No.
things, but it is true. Everything's expensive.
Well, that's certainly the way to keep the episode down, time down. To start talking about Black Sabbath. That's and the price of everything. That's great. Oh yeah, I mean you're so right though. I mean so 260 plus of course you get a burger and chips. You get there, you have a few beers. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
going to be like 340 or 350 quid just for a great day that you really remember. But wow, how do people do that in life very much? They can't. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for your email, Ross. That certainly sparked some more chat about us there about the cost of life, which just seems to be getting ever more mad. Really, hotels another one.
Mm.
I've been looking a bit about Sheffield, the World Championship. York just got a Christmas for the UK. You cannot get hotel deals anymore. At least I can't. I don't know how to. They're just mad. Everything. End up staying up quite a lot in Airbnb, quite a long way out of York because everything's just so expensive. Next on to Michael Carter, Phil. Hello, Phil and Nick. This is about sort of at a biggest event of all the World Championship, kind of related, talking about attractions. He says, thanks for all you both do for snooker fans. I love listening to this podcast every week. It's just such a perfect blend you have with chat about the tournaments plus great guests. I'm going to the World Championship this year for the first time and wondered about the best place to meet other snooker fans during the tournament. I've heard you mention the Graduate before, but not being the biggest pub person, is there anywhere else you'd really recommend? Phil, I know you live in Sheffield, so maybe this is more for you. I'm counting down the weeks to the best 17 days of the year. Michael, it is more for you, that's true, I would say, Phil. But my one that came to my mind was that Mama's and Leonie's. I love eating in there
Mm.
because I was thinking, not only do I always seem to meet snooker people, have a great chat, but it's all about cost. Unless they put their price, I don't think they would have done, knowing them. I always think when I come out of there, I feel full up, nicely happy and full, and it hasn't annoyed me wallet wise. It's always okay. So that's one place. But any little cafes around there, and I have to say, I know it's an ubiquitous kind of thing now. The Mercure Hotel. I mean, that's the other end. That's not a cheap place if you're going to eat and drink in there. But it's a nice hotel, and loads of the stars stay there, mooch about there. So. And also snooker people. So anyway, around that vicinity for me, but I know you probably have more specific ideas.
Well, no, that's right. I mean, Michael's asking sort of to meet snooker people specifically. I mean, I could go into all sorts of stuff in Sheffield's do, but it is just that pub around the Crucible, isn't it? So anywhere around there, the Graduate. I mean, I've said this on. I don't really want to slag it off, but the Graduate is nothing special in terms of a pub.
Yeah.
Everyone's in there, and you'll meet lots of nice people, and it's a lot of fun because there's lots of familiar faces, and you can speak to anyone. So you got to recommend that. Yeah, the Mercure Hotel Bar, which is great because you can just wander in there. You don't need to be staying there. It's open late, so that's good. Yeah, the Brown Bear's there as well. I mean, I stood having a drink in in that pub, sort of by the window, and it's just like we're sort of watching a who's who of snooker walking to and fro along that road to the
Oh
Crucible
yeah,
back to
yeah.
where the hotels are. So that's a lot of fun. And yeah, there's cafes around there. There's other pubs. There's restaurants, but yeah, Mama Leone's. I remember going there as a kid. Yeah, I bet it's not changed. It's very sort of home cooking vibe, but that's a compliment. That's a nice thing. Um, so yeah, it's great around there. And then yeah, there's some other stuff to go in Sheffield. I mean, there's a great snooker shop in Sheffield, which is a bit out of town. Um, but it's worth a little trip up to Chesworth Queues. A lot of pros go in there to sort of get their cues retipped actually, but you can go and play on a little table. And a friend of mine actually runs a pizza place called Dough Truck Pizza right by there. So go and have a nice pizza and go to a lovely snooker shop. Yeah, it's you can't really miss all the stuff. It's best to meet snooker people. It's just in and around the Crucible, so that's your best bet. But if you want any other recommendations, things to do in Sheffield, then give me a shout and I'll let you know.
Great stuff. And I think it's your turn for the next one, isn't it?
Yeah, John Chapman. It was great to hear Gary Wilson on the podcast. One of the most interesting players out there, in my opinion, in the way he just says it's exactly how it is. It's a shame that he's having such a poor season so far, and I really hope he can get his form back soon. Thanks for such an enjoyable review of the German Masters too. I'm glad you had such a good time in Berlin, Nick. I went a few years ago and also had no issue at all with the distance from the table. It's a brilliant venue. Best wishes to you both, John. Thank you very much, John.
Yeah. Thank you, John. Appreciate that. You're right. I did have a good time, and yeah, distance from the table not particularly an issue for me, as I said last time. We also had a really nice, a really nice one, and also Gary Wilson. Maybe should we say now about Gary actually in more detail? He was great, wasn't he? Smashing good value. He is really interesting. We've spoken to you before. Thanks for setting it up. We knew it would be good. I wish he was in better form as well. I think many snooker fans do. But I was a bit surprised he was so upbeat, actually, quite pleased. We were a little bit like, were you? Because I was a bit like, oh God, that's what we said at the Masters. Only about, what, 2 or 3 weeks on, he's going to be so down. But he seemed to have moved on from them that more than I thought he would, which was kind of positive.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, he's sort of. I think he's just very honest. Like if he's feeling bad, he'll say he's feeling bad, but it doesn't mean he's sort of like completely in the doldrums. He knows what he's going to do. Like he's going to carry on playing and work hard, and it'll come back. I mean, he's sort of always been a streaky player to some extent. He just had a real hot streak fairly recently, and he'll have another one soon, I'm sure. There's plenty more to come. Um, but yeah, no, he's just an interesting guy to speak to. I think you can always tell he's always been more than happy to speak for pieces for me for Metro and now on here. Because he likes chatting and he's got interesting things to say. A lot of snooker players like this, they're quite thinkers, really. Um, they don't say things lightly, and they take what they say seriously. And Doesn't always mean they're right about stuff, but they do. They do. They're interested in what their thoughts are and what they mean and how they're going to say things. So Gary's definitely one of those guys, and makes him a great guest for this.
He was. So we really thank him for that, and he was great value. And we obviously wish him well for the remaining weeks and months of the season. One more we've had from Liam Sandbrook actually, which we will put on our Twitter feed sometime soon. Liam, thanks for that. He says, "Hi guys, I work for TFL, and we have an employee magazine that comes out once a month, mainly with news on what's going on in the company, etc. In this month's issue, this interview came up with ex-player Darren Sparks. Not sure if you would remember him. Anyway, I love the podcast. Keep up the good work, Liam." The honest answer is, in specific terms, I'm not sure I really do, but the name does ring a bell. He's a sort of guy that I think I've heard Phil Yates talk about in press rooms. You know what I mean? It's sort of like,
Yeah, yeah.
I can imagine sort of, oh yeah, Darren Sparks. Phil would have some sort of line about him. So it does sort of ring a bell. But the interview part was really nice, actually. And he talks about beating Ronnie, doesn't he, in one of the sort of exhibition matches, and talks about some of his nice memories, and you're obviously now a TFL man. So yeah, thanks for that. Appreciate it. And it's funny, isn't it, to think about players. There's a particular ilk of player, isn't there? I think the ones that you don't remember. This is where the David Hendon quiz he did at Christmas before last with us came in useful with those names. Because some of them, the ones that are not really around much, and I had a look at Darren Sparks' results. He never really beat a very top player. He pushed one or two right at the end. He beat some, relatively notable names at the time, but he never really beat anyone top that's really notable. But those kind of guys that are around, you sort of think, yeah, they go away, you never hear them again. And so it's nice when 20, 30 years later they pop up. Oh, that's what they're doing in life, eh?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, no, I didn't really remember him as a player. I think I must have been quite young when he was in the sort of low reaches of the professional game. But yeah, no, he's still playing, still involved in the game, even at a professional level. But even these guys that if anyone's heard of them as a professional player or near the professional game, they're great players. They've got a super amount of talent. So I'm sure he was very impressive. But yeah, no, nice interview, and thanks for flagging that. Some lovely pictures in there. So yeah, no, it was good.
Yeah, no, appreciate that, Neil. I know you've written to us about some nice things in the past, so thank you for that. We've got any other business, Phil? Let's quickly go back to the video printer, though. Oh, I tell you what, knock on Sankam Luca Purcell. We might catch the end of this when we go off the air. It's 2-2 at the moment, and it's 1-1 in that Mark Selby Elliott. You always seem to have a faster service than me. It's probably all over. I'm probably looking at something from like one of the oldest phones. Are you also seeing 2-2 and 1-1?
No, that's right. Yeah, I mean, shock horror. Mark Selby, Elliot's letter is looking like it might head towards midnight. Who would have thought it?
Nobody did start late, in fairness. But yeah,
Why
no,
do they always put Selby on in the latest possible slot? What are
that,
they doing?
that is a good snooker question. And you are so many of those, Phil. I always seem to start any other business, so why don't I say no over to my partner in crime, Phil? Have you got anything particular to say? Anything more to plug?
No, not really. We'll have some more stuff coming up over this week. Um, yeah, as I said, the sort of media side of it's great with Eurosport and the BBC, and been doing some good Zoom. I'm not in London now, but they've been doing some good Zoom chats from over there. So there'll be some more stuff to come. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. And then it'll be from London. The week off, isn't there? And then the World Open in Yushan. London to Yushan. What a trip that is.
Absolutely, and we must preview that when we're next on air. Actually, we're hoping to come back after the Welsh Open final, aren't we? I'm going to Tottenham v Manchester United on Sunday, but it's a 4:30, and even with other stuff after the game, I don't think that will impinge on it greatly. Knowing Sod's law, it'll be one of those that's really over quickly. Let's hope for the sake of the pod it's not, and it goes and for snooker that it goes quite late into the night, and then we can do a good one hopefully coming up for you Sunday night. So I'm sure that'll be a Monday morning listen for many of you. Yeah, I like the mixture of Eurosport and BBC as well. Eurosport are there, of course, with Rachel Casey and Neil Foles. That hasn't been the case for a lot of other tournaments, so in the home nation, so that's interesting. Yeah, cast of thousands on the old BBC. They're all having a go, aren't they? Good to see Andy Stevenson, who's I think a voice we know from various other sports. He's there. Look, I can't remember now because so many things blur into one. Whether the old Virgo Taylor double act, whether they always both do this. I'm thinking maybe not. Virgo, I think, has done. Not sure about Dennis, so they're both doing it as well. Joe Perry, great, as I said earlier, great to have him back. But loads of voices: Sean Murphy, Ken Doherty, Reanne's doing it. So yeah, lot of voices really, and good to have the sort of combination of both channels. Well, just a word on other sporting matters then, Phil. Well, the Philadelphia Eagles were dominant winners of the Super Bowl on Sunday, beating the Kansas City Chiefs 40-22 in New Orleans. So no three-peat for the Chiefs, and instead glory for Nick Sirianni's Eagles. Congratulations to them. Always a big hangover for me when that season's over. There was some big cup upsets north and south of the border. Queen's Park had an amazing 1-0 win at Rangers in the Scottish Cup, while Liverpool went down to a 1-0 defeat at Plymouth in the FA Cup. And we waited till Everton-Liverpool was over tonight before we came on air, and well, that was a pretty dramatic finish. Everton scoring right at the end, Phil, in a 2-2 draw. Loads of red cards as well at the final whistle and after the final whistle. But as we were saying, Liverpool are still sitting pretty, aren't they? 7 points clear. So still in a very strong position in the Premier League. But hell of a finish. So that's the last ever Merseyside derby at Goodison Park. Ireland made it 2 wins out of 2 in the Six Nations, beating Scotland at Murrayfield. England beat France in a thriller at Twickenham. And Wales lost their 14th match in a row, going down to defeat to Italy in Rome. Head coach Warren Gatland has since that game left his role as the Wales head coach. And Gerwyn Price, Phil, who I often think is a funny sort of player in recent times, he seems to sort of not be a big factor at a lot of tournaments, but then obviously still capable of winning them. He won the second Players' Championship of the year with a 8-7 win. Good match at the final over Chris Dobie, having earlier beaten some young guy, Luke Littler. So in the last 8, so anyone that gets the better of Littler is doing well. So I quite like Gerwyn. It's sort of I love the narrative of him being a brilliant rugby player, then so I'll try darts and then becoming the world champion. And also, he's a feisty rascal. I mean, he's a naughty one, really. He just do anything to wind everyone up. I love the headphones that year, but he's not vanilla. He's not.
Yeah.
He's the opposite of vanilla, that man.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, good character, great player. Yeah, and those Players' Championship events. So there was one on the 10th, so one on Monday and Tuesday, and they're the events I've spoken about on here that snooker would absolutely love. A lot of the tour would love, but just the logistics of the game are different because they're 128 players in one day play to a finish. Just because they're just getting a room full of dartboards and you can play a game of darts quite quickly. So, and it's quite a good prize money. It's like 20 grand the winner. So, and they have loads and loads of these over the season because you can just cram it into a day in the midweek and there's no crowd. It's just streamed. So this is what sort of keeps the tour ticking over and means that players can earn good money regularly. It's what we're sort of missing in snooker, and lower ranked players would, they'd dream of that kind of thing. So yeah, it's just the logistics of the sport. You can't fit 40 snooker tables into a room, and you can't play even best of sevens in a reliably short amount of time. So it's difficult. But yeah, they do throw up good stories. I don't know if you saw Bo Greaves. She won her first game, picked up her first win against very good player Josh Rock, averaged over 100. Very, very impressive. She's a great player. So yeah, Fallon Sherrock obviously made sort of the big breakthrough for women's darts, but Bo is probably going to take that a lot further. She's very, very impressive. So competing well alongside the men. So it'll be interesting to see how she does. Well, many years to come. She's still very young, so very exciting to see what she's going to produce.
Is she a better player than Fallon, basically?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because obviously Fallon Sherrock did, as you say, made the big first impression. But yeah, Bo Greaves, obviously the real
No
deal.
disrespect to Fallon, who is a very good player, but
Yeah.
I think Bo's ceiling looks incredible, really.
Well, that's great. Well, that'll be great for that sport. And well, we'll be back then, Phil, won't we, after this weekend's Welsh Open final? Enjoy the rest of the tournament. It's going to be an absolute crack. I mean, they always are, really, last home nation of the season, but so many good stories potentially with this lineup coming up in the last 16. All the scores, of course, on WST and snooker.org, and no doubt you'll be covering it in your usual way as well, Phil, and the various other good journalists out there, of course, and broadcasters, and Tessa Davidson on this podcast at the end of the month. So if you've got a question for Tessa, tweet us at Talking Snooker or email talkingsnooker@yahoo.com. Shall we go?
I think we done it.
I think we should. So thanks for your company, and see you this weekend. Short turnaround. We'll be whispering sweet snooker nothings to each other in about 4 days' time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Pleasure as always. Thanks for listening, everybody. Much appreciated, and we'll speak to you very soon.
Thanks for your company. Keep enjoying your snooker, and for your old friends, Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf. Cheerio.